This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
Hello, everybody. It's time for more Law Light, brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtree, FWHlegal.com. We are situated today at the high-rise white brick edifice at 530 Frederick Street in Owensboro, Kentucky. We are in the library studio, which is also trial preparation headquarters right now. We got projectors and screens and dollies and cargo containers. It's just a makeshift everything. This is an all-purpose room, right? Yeah. How are you, PJ?
I'm doing good.
Good. You? I'm doing really good. I was kind of not looking forward to having to drive to Terre Haute, Indiana today. We had, in one of our medical negligence cases, our expert is from Terre Haute, our expert nurse, and they were going to be taking her deposition. And, unfortunately, one of the attorneys, or the attorney who was scheduling it, had a family emergency that I don't know and I hate that for him, but it does. Right. As you've seen, and as you know, I'm in the peak of trial prep for a trial we have starting next week. And so the day or two of relief, not being on the road, not traveling, not tired, and plus there was some bad weather up there. So we caught a break.
Congratulations.
And we get to record the podcast.
That we do.
Without having to be remote or me being on the road or you and being gone and all. It was going to be a mess.
I wasn't. Yeah, when we talked about you being on the road and recording tomorrow, I had completely forgot that I was going to be headed to Bowling Green. So
yeah, we'll figure it out. Well, we did figure it
out.
We
always find a way.
You are always relentless in finding a way. So. Hey, real quick, last episode we had a what I would call a hodgepodge. We use that word from time to time of discussions, and totally in the end we had discussed some issues about faith.
Right.
But I'll tell you, I have gotten several comments about our last podcast. I got a text this morning from a friend of Missy's, and she was like, hey, you guys have an incredible podcast. You actually called God. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right, we did. We called this and not. And by the way, I have not gotten any more text messages
I was gonna
from
ask.
God. I have not, but I do know Missy got one. I haven't talked to Missy's friend, but I do know her sister got one, and one of our kids got one. So I don't know if it's, I don't know. Have you heard of anybody else getting them?
No, not at all. You all are literally the only people I'm aware of.
It's so weird. And so like I asked, my dad. So I don't know if it's somebody that this is like has all of our phone numbers, like a family member, like a mole, but whoever it is doing a great job keeping it.
Eventually you'll be able to write a book and call it Messages from God.
Messages from God. That's right.
I want some royalties on that if it happens.
But anyway, a lot of comments on our last one. We appreciate people always reaching out to us either on social media or texting us or calling us and letting us know, because we want the podcast to be entertaining, educational, all at the same time. So lots of comments about that. The other thing I want to mention real quick is my daughter's boyfriend had some serious situation occur on Monday. Was in the hospital and put on a ventilator.
Oh, no.
And I was at the hospital late Monday night. He's come off the ventilator yesterday, but is still not in very good condition. For those that listen, to pray for him, his name is, I'll probably put his name out, but you can pray for my daughter and her boyfriend.
Is it COVID related or is it unrelated to?
Not COVID related. They have no idea. He's negative for COVID.
Right. I know not everything is COVID. He
has no history of seizures. Of course, what happened was he started having slurred speech, seizing, uncontrollable seizures. They sedated him. They had to really, really sedate him to get him and put him on the ventilator so that they could do some tests, So
That's awful. I'm sorry to hear that.
the good news is he did come off the ventilator, which is
that's good.
Yesterday. So
Right. So he's improving.
he is improving. Extremely agitated and has no recollection and But we'll see. Anything going on in your world that I need to know about?
Going back to the whole faith thing, we had talked about how I was meeting with
Kenny. You did say it that way.
I did. What's funny is when I said it during the podcast and you pointed out that I said his name that way, I remember thinking, I didn't say it like that. But then when I went back and edited the podcast, I was like, holy crap, I did say it like that.
I'm going to go see Kenny.
I'm going to go see Kenny. But, and I know you're aware, Leslie told me she texted you last night. She didn't.
Me.
Yeah, she didn't say like what you all talked about in the message, but she did say that she had messaged you because. But I did meet with him last night. Super nice guy, incredibly intelligent, ridiculously intelligent.
Now, where is this guy? With which church is he associated with, or do you know? Where'd you meet with
Hancock
him?
County Baptist, I think.
Okay,
I think is where he's the pastor at.
All right,
I may be wrong about that, so don't quote me.
Where'd you meet with him at?
Oh, at Leslie's house.
Oh.
I'm going to preface everything I say by saying this. We've been binge watching movies that Leslie hasn't seen, and Leslie has seen none of the Jurassic Park movies.
Okay.
How that's possible, I have no idea. We've been binge watching.
There's a new one coming out, by the way.
Oh, I know, and it looks incredible. Have you seen the trailer for it?
Yeah, I did. I saw that. We went and saw Uncharted the other night.
How was that?
It was a good movie.
Was it?
Yeah, it's good.
I don't know much about the game, but like the movie, and I like Tom Holland.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. I saw the trailer. Go ahead.
So we've been watching these movies. Well, of course, we've been watching them with the boys. Jurassic Park 3 is probably the lesser, in my opinion, the lesser of the movies. It's more of almost a straightforward monster movie. Mm-hmm. Leslie and I ended up watching it together without the boys. So when I picked up Logan and Connor on Monday, and I was immediately, they were like, are we getting together with Leslie so we can watch the Jurassic Park movies? And I had mentioned how, we weren't that night. And then I mentioned that we had watched Jurassic Park 3. Well, that threw Logan into like he didn't have a meltdown, but he was not happy.
That you watched it without him?
Yes. He was very dissatisfied with my decision. And that was on me, and he rightfully so, because, that was something we were all doing together. But so anyway, the whole point of last night was that the boys were all going to watch Jurassic Park 3 together, Connor, Logan, and her son Luke, while we sat at the table and all kind of chit-chatted. Leslie wasn't really planning on being a part of the conversation. She was going to be like a fly on the wall because she in her words, we were going to give each other a run for our money. And Logan ended up not wanting to do that. Logan wanted to sit at the table and listen and also be a fly on the wall. Now, I was concerned about that because Logan can be very opinionated. One of the big issues he has is he will state things as if they are fact, even if he doesn't know what he's talking
Unfounded.
about. Right. But I mean, he says things with such conviction. If you were to take it at face value, you would be like, this kid might know what he's talking about. But 9 times out of 10, he's just saying things that he thinks are truth, and they're not factual. Gotcha. He's very opinionated when it comes to religion or faith, and so I was a bit concerned about that. He did incredible. There were a couple times where some things were said, and I could see out of the corner of my eye him starting to have a reaction to it, or making a face, or like I could see him going, man, like he really wanted to say something, but he held it back and he just sat and listened. And there were a couple times that he and I think were on the same wavelength, because then I would chime in with where my mind was at, and then I could see him go, yeah, like that's what I was gonna say, or that's what I was thinking. But it was a really, really productive conversation. The man is incredibly knowledgeable about the Bible. I've had a lot of conversations with people about religion and about faith and God and the like, and I've been put in front of people that I was told by others who were very knowledgeable on Bible scripture and whatnot. Usually they were pretty knowledgeable, but I think with Kenny, he is the most knowledgeable. Not many of my questions were answered last night. He would give me the answer to the best of his ability, but the one thing that he did that I really liked is he would mix historical factual things with the biblical scriptures, so he'd kind of like pair them together, and or he would relate certain things in the Bible to things that we know are tangible, because the way I look at it is the Bible in a lot of ways is intangible, and that's what faith is in a lot. It also is like is that belief in something that in many ways is intangible. Well, he goes, let me ask you this: what is love? And I said, there's many factors to create love. I said it's a mixture of chemical reactions in the brain that cause a physical reaction in the body, and of course from that creates emotions, and emotions are chemical reactions. And so I'm like giving the very scientific definition of what these things are, and he's like, dude, let me stop you there. He's like, you're just like, you sound like a science book. He goes, yeah, it's a chemical reaction, but what else is it? He's like, because you got, love is more than a chemical reaction. He's right, because, love is more than just a chemical reaction. But of course, the way my mind works is I'm like, you get down to the basis of what love is that. It's like anger. Anger is a chemical reaction where, and it's electrical currents going from one part of the brain to the other. So you think love is an emotion? If you get down to the basis of what feelings are chemical reactions. From that, we get physical reactions, which is what where we feel things. And then, of course, our mind is analyzing that information, and then we base an opinion on how we feel based off the physical reactions of a chemical reaction. Mm-hmm. Now, it does go further because, there's bonds, physical bonds, emotional bonds that are created with other people, with our children. And yes, it feels much deeper, but I think a lot of that, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, and I completely understand, especially those with faith, but I think faith in a lot of ways is putting meaning to something that could potentially have no meaning, and there's nothing wrong with that. And see, that's where I stand. Like, there's nothing wrong with having faith. You're always going to have those individuals who use religion and faith to manipulate and get their own way, and that's not religion's fault. Mm-hmm. That's not the belief structure's fault. That's the person using. Because if let's say that religion wasn't there, they would find another way to get what they want and manipulate people, and they're always gonna find another way to do it. So it's not religion or faith's fault for people using it in nefarious ways. So I don't fault the belief of God on people who like do bad things. I blame the person for doing the bad things and using that for their gain, their own personal gain. In terms of like love, if you get down to the science of it, it's a chemical reaction. Okay. But then we put more meaning to it because there is more to it. There is.
So what did he? So where did he go with that? Why did he start?
Well, he didn't agree.
What is love?
He didn't really agree with me. What he ended up using that is he basically said that love is almost like an inherent thing, an ability that we are given, and then it comes from a higher place, and that's why we can't fully define what love is. I mean, because that was the whole purpose of the conversation. It's always going to go back to faith because that's where he's coming from, and then of course I'm coming from a different perspective.
Kind of similar to what I told you last week. It's the concept of God is good. I think the question instead of love is what is good? Where does good come from? Because
and he brought that up too.
If the opposite of good, when I said all that last week, I won't restate it all, but that's interesting, and this guy sounds interesting. The question I have is like, where did you leave it? Are you going to meet with this guy again? Are you going to talk to him some more?
Yeah, he gave me his email address. He said that he didn't have any level of expectation going into it. He wasn't expecting me to go, oh my gosh, you're right, it's all real. He goes, that would not be realistic to look at it that way. He said this is a journey you're on, and it's gonna end somewhere. He goes, but as long as you stick to it, he's like, I honestly believe that you will find what you're looking for as long as you sincerely are trying to look for it. He said, I'm not going to be able to sit here and convince you. He said, at the end of the day, you're going to have to convince yourself.
Like I told you during college, when I was what I would say at the peak of my intellectual curiosity and spiritual curiosity, I had to do a lot of soul searching and reading. And the only thing I would add before we move on is that if you genuinely are searching for what you really believe, because you know what you believe now. You have a very firm grip on what you believe. Okay.
Right.
And while it may be contrary to what I believe, my only thing is if there is a question in your mind as to, well, is this belief founded, your belief being founded, and it's a genuine question, then you need to feed that question. You need to keep seeking, because if you have any inclination, and that's what it was. I was the opposite. I was raised as a believer. This is what is right, and you're going to come to see this because we're going to put you in this environment so often that you're just going to believe it. So I came at it as, well, I'm a believer. Is this right? As opposed to I'm a non-believer and am I right? But I had a question. My question was, I've believed this all my life, but is this belief right? Is it founded? Is it reasonable? I talked about this. Would any human being with this really believe this stuff? And so I had to search.
Right.
And it was that question that kept me reading those books and talking to people. And finally I said, yeah, I really do believe this. And you're coming at it just from the opposite side. It's well, I'm not really convinced, but if there's a question in your mind or in your soul or in your heart that you may be wrong, then I would just say feed the question. That would be the only thing I would say.
Just for anybody who's listening, I've always questioned things, including things that are considered science fact.
Right.
Because I remember learning that the interior core of the Earth is a giant molten ball of magma that is spinning on its axis, and that's what's creating gravity and this, that, and the other. You could bring in the most intelligent scientist right now and sit him across from me, and he could explain in detail how we know that it's fact, because it's taught in school as fact, that the core of the Earth is molten lava that spins and creates gravity. And I would be like, you don't know that. You have never been there. We have never been to the core of the Earth. Now, obviously, there is evidence that it could be real, right? Like that's what it is. As far as the Bible's concerned, there's evidence that things in it are factual, but there's a lot of things about it that you can't prove. And that's the same to me with like the core of the Earth. We've never been to the core of the Earth. So how do you teach something that's science fact when you've never been there?
Right.
Like the other day, yesterday, I was having a conversation with Logan, and they say, well, the sun is made of super hot plasma. And I'm like, well, how do they know it's plasma? It's so hot, we've never sampled what the sun is made of. So how do you actually know that it's plasma? Are you just saying, well, it looks and has the same consistency as plasma, but maybe it's not plasma?
Right.
Because we've never had a piece of it to actually know.
And there comes a point where, as a human, you got to understand the limitations of knowledge. And you have to say, what are big rocks and what are little rocks? And I'm not going to fight you over the little rocks, right? Because, look, if I took this cup, right? If I took this cup and I put 3 big rocks in it, it would take up 90% of the capacity of the cup. All the little rocks make up the other 10%. But where we get as people is we fight over that 10%. And we lose sight over the 90%. And the big rocks are what's important.
Yeah.
And
see, that's how my mind works, though. And
I understand.
Does that make me stubborn or hard-headed? No. In some ways, I think it does, because what happens is I'm not necessarily, I'm struggling with myself, because there's two sides of me. There's the part of me that believes or wants to believe that it's real, the part of me that believes in ghosts. Because here's the thing. You sitting here trying to explain.
Excuse me. That is the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, you had a little bit too much spirit, I think. What I related it to when I was talking to him last night is like, I believe in ghosts, right? Or supernatural things happening. Mm-hmm. I think there could be something to it. So like you sitting here trying to explain how you know that it's all real to me is the same as me trying to explain to someone who has never had a paranormal experience how I know paranormal things are real because I've seen it with my own eyes. Right? It's the same thing, because they're going to look at me and go, yeah, I don't know about that.
You said, but you believe it.
On the same hand, though, I fully, and I said this to him last night, which he didn't fully agree with either, but, I've said this before, that reality is only what your brain allows it to perceive. Am I really sitting here talking to you, or am I actually sitting in a padded room talking to a wall, and all this really seems legit?
It's real. I'm here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's all real, but...
To be continued.
Yeah, we could have a whole lecture series.
Yeah. Religion Light. The truth of mankind.
We've already turned off all of our atheist listeners.
They can come in and talk anytime they want. I want to switch subjects. I'm going to say 2 words to you, and I've got a little information for you. So, since I know that you are an inquiring mind, right? The 2 words that I have are amaretto sour.
Those 2 words together make a delicious concoction.
And you had your first this weekend, right?
I did.
Right. For those that are not aware, I think PJ's mentioned this several times on the podcast, but just not a drinker.
No.
It's just really kind of just because of your dad and things like that. It's like just never been a big deal. And so,
I come from a long line of alcoholics.
Right. So I just didn't want to put your, dip your toe in that, Right. I got you. But this weekend we went to a birthday party and several people there were people drinking, and you took a drink of an amaretto sour. And so, and you said, man, it was really good, Well, I did a little research about amaretto sours for you. Have you looked into this?
Well, when I took it, first of all, I love cherries, right? So when I took the first drink of it, it had a cherry in it.
Right.
So I assumed that there was some kind of cherry flavoring. And I was like, man, this is really good, and it tastes like cherries. And they start telling me, they're like, well, there's actually no like cherry flavoring in it. It's amaretto, I guess, is like a sweet
liquor,
a liqueur,
right?
And so I started researching what it was, and it's made of like almonds and stuff like that, but there were no cherries in it.
Right. So the better amaretto is a liquor, and the reason that you're saying, Travis, I didn't really taste alcohol, is that amaretto is 20% alcohol by volume, which is compared to a bourbon. Your bourbons run anywhere from 45 to 55%. They're like, if it's 90 proof, you can kind of take that in half.
Right.
That's a rough rule of thumb. And where beers will range anywhere from 4.6% alcohol by volume to 7 or 8%, on average. Yeah. So an amaretto is for a liquor, it's a lower percentage of alcohol, which is one of the reasons that it tastes better, right?
Yeah.
But
probably the other reason is that's why I never got buzzed.
Yeah, probably. But that, and you didn't drink 6 of them, right?
No, I only had 1.
Well, there you go. And you're good for that. But the best amaretto have both. This is what I found interesting. The best amaretto has both bitter almond and sweet almond in it. They don't. So they put a bitter almond probably to maybe offset the alcohol taste, and then you get the sweet almond that comes in over that.
Right.
Also, they in the good amarettos, they will have apricot kernels and peach pits. So I think what you picked up as the cherry taste was probably the combination of a good apricot and peach combination,
right?
Which kind of gave you that sweet, fruity taste.
Yeah.
So
well, I know it gets mixed with Sprite.
A dash of Sprite, and a little bit of a sour mix.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of different sour mixes on the market. So if you have a good sour mix, or not as sour, then the sweet's going to override it. So, but anyway, just wanted to give you a little information. And the only difference between an amaretto sour and a whiskey sour is that the whiskey substitutes the amaretto, so it would be a stronger drink.
Right. And I've tasted whiskey before, and I was not a fan.
Not a fan. Okay.
No, I spit it out.
Well, before we go, I mentioned at on the last podcast that we are going to be focusing on work ethic here. Like, what does work ethic look like? This year, sort of our marketing campaign for the firm is FW&H, kind of focused on. And for the F, we've been talking about our foundation of excellence. And what the foundation of excellence looks like is basically our people. It's built on our people, and it's built on the relationships that we have. We've talked a lot about that, the things that you've been able to, just recently did an incredible video for CareNet.
Thank you.
But that is a foundation of excellence, because what CareNet got from us was an excellent promotional video, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's because of the person that you are, and then your talent coming into connection with our vision of wanting to help nonprofits, and then being able to produce something like that.
Yeah.
That's a foundation upon which we're built, as our people, our skill sets. But you can have all the skill in the world, right? If you don't apply it, it's meaningless. I mean, you can be the most gifted pastor, right? But if you don't apply it to if you don't apply it to and do some work behind it, it's meaningless. I mean, it's kind of bringing Kenny home,
Yeah.
If Kenny didn't agree to meet with you, then his gift of being knowledgeable about Scripture would not have been used, right? The application of talent is work. The habit of doing that over and over is the ethic behind it, the work ethic. And what I'm wanting to introduce this idea because there's a lot of people that probably have the belief that, well, you're a law firm, you have lawyers, you do law things, and you get law results. That's boiling it down to its fundamental. But how do you do it well enough to be recognized for awards? How do you do it well enough to get results in people's cases? How do you do it well enough to have a reputation of excellence? And it's the ethic, it's the work ethic. And one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to highlight some of the habits of our people around here from a work standpoint so that people can kind of get a vision behind it. And I'm going to give a lot of personal examples, and it's not to say, well, I've got a great work that Travis does, but I was going to give some insight into some of my training, like before I was ever a managing partner, some of what was expected of me when I was a young attorney, and then kind of show you how that is being taught to Davin. Kind of wanted to introduce the topic. I knew last week I said we were going to have some specific examples. We went a little bit long today, which is fine. That's what the podcast is for, to kind of have entertaining stuff and educational stuff.
We're good.
But from the work ethic standpoint, one of the things that before we start, we have to understand, I think to have a genuine work ethic that is conducive to good outcomes, which is what the business we're in, is serving people get good outcomes. You have to have, first of all, you have to have a diverse group of people. For example, I think that we are better in our workplace because you and I have it's one of the reasons the podcast is fun and entertaining, is because if Tyler and I got in here and did this podcast all the time, we'd be talking about sports every time, right?
He just flipped me off.
Yeah, if he would just walk by. But we'd talk about sports and cases, and it would be the same thing every time, right? I mean, because Tyler and I are a lot alike. We talk about sports. We talk about, that's and so just an example. The podcast works better. Get it? Mm-hmm. Because two people. Totally different hobbies, totally different upbringings, totally different walks of life come together, and it's entertaining. It's educational, and fun.
What I took away from that is you just admitted that Tyler would be a super boring co-host.
Right, I think so. So, and let's get some people to call in and vote on that. When you multiply it and you look at our staff, I mean, you look at the difference between, Amy Burden and Stacy, right? I mean, two totally different people, right? But they're both plugged into a place in the firm. They and it's that way for everybody. Our attorneys are different, and we can not all of us are from Owensboro. Not all of us were raised here.
Right.
We have people that were born and raised in all different places, and we do have some that their entire life has been here in Owensboro, and we have people that are practicing in Ohio County who were born and raised in Ohio County, but we also have people that are working in Ohio County that have no ties to Ohio County. And so the very first thing that makes what I believe Foreman, Watson, Holtridge, but any place, able to put together work habit is that we're enough different to where it stimulates good work. When you just walk down the hall and, we have both males and females. We have people. It's a diverse group that I think works well together. And I wanted to kind of mention that too, because what we do as a firm is people will come to us with a problem. They come to us with problems, whether it is, and sometimes it's just a riddle to solve. It's I'm wanting to open a business. I want to set it up for tax advantage. I want to be able to. I want to. We have 2 or 3 people that are going to own parts of it. How do we do this? It's a riddle. It's a puzzle, and they need an attorney to put the puzzle together with them. Now there are those who will look at options for a person like that just because that's the way they've always done it, or there's going to be the kind of attorneys and staff that say, "Let's get you your best option," and that's the difference in good work ethic and work. Okay, and that's where I want to focus in on the next couple of weeks is the difference between doing the work, but having a good work ethic, the difference,
Right.
and where our attorneys are different is I believe that we look at every single case, every single client, every single opportunity is that what is the best way to resolve this matter? And then how do we go about it? And if you're not trained and you're not equipped, you can have, again, all the talent in the world, but it doesn't come out into good results. So that's where we're going to focus as we go forward to discussing work ethic. And it's going to touch on things that you do in the firm. It's going to kind of look at some of the training that young lawyers get, and then how that kind of, and Tyler goes back by again reaffirming that he would be a terrible co-host, right?
What's hilarious is he was doing that thing where, you know, when you go behind something like a couch or whatever and you act like you're walking downstairs that aren't there.
But he
started doing that, but there's nothing there but just a big open glass window. Yeah.
When we discuss work ethic, we may have to exclude Tyler from that discussion. I think he's just
in his defense, he gets very passionate about his cases.
Oh, he does. He does. We're going to talk about that.
Door slammingly patient.
Yeah.
Or passionate.
And then as we're talking, you know, you got Chris in here who's looking at him. He's working. Yeah.
He's eating up those cork boards.
Yeah. Anyway, it's going to be a great discussion. It's going to let people kind of have a window into not just our firm, but the difference that you need to look for if you're hiring lawyers, what you need to look for. And I think it'll be educational for the public. So
sounds good.
All right. Well, let's do this again next week.
We should.
All right. And until then, this has been Law Light, brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtry, fwhlegal.com. Check us out on all of our social media platforms. There's a lot of good information on Facebook and on our website. We have the blog and all kinds of legal information to help people. Until next time, thank you for listening.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery of a sham, of a mockery of a travesty of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!